like, all right, let me get out there and explore a little bit.
Fearful, fearless. Like people are fearless today.
Today's fearless.
Yeah.
Well, I think since you're kind of giving us a history lesson on the amount of interest rate hikes and lowering it, I think it's important to note it's currently at 4.5%. We're talking about the Fed fund rate, right? And that's the rate at which commercial banks loan each other overnight money to match reserves. That's essentially what that is, right, Tom? And then it's obviously the Fed uses interest rates and rate hikes to kind of cool inflation. Stat for you. We talk about what mortgage rates were in the this.
Is this for sale or no?
We should put it on for sale.
No, I'm asking you serious questions. I was just looking at it. It looks sick. Everybody's saying you look like Maverick. You look sick on camera.
It's dope.
Guys,
But it's not for sale?
No, it is for sale. You could buy it off my back right now. I've got extreme greed right now, guys.
That's right.
I'm no longer fearful.
For $3,000, my shoes are for sale.
Anyway, just history lesson. We talked about how in the 80s, interest rates, mortgages were double digits. Do you know what the Fed fund rate was in 1980 when Ronald Reagan took over presidency? 20%. That's what banks charged each other to borrow money. 20%? Are you kidding me? It's at 4.5%. By the way, it went down to 0% in 2008 and then during COVID. So these dramatic rate hikes and lowering the rates, this is what makes America tick, right? We get so caught up in politics and fuck Joe Biden and fuck Trump and this, that. But this is we talk about Jerome Powell being the most powerful man in America. These rates are wildly different. And how does this affect you? This affects you with your mortgage, with your loans, with your car loans, with what you're paying in student loans, what it costs to borrow money, small business loans. These are the numbers you got to kind of pay attention to.
Yeah, so let me
credit cards for sure.
It goes right next to the story here to transition after perfect timing for this. Jamie Dimon warns it's too early to declare victory against inflation. JP Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon suggests that the Federal Reserve could raise interest rates higher than expected if price pressure persists. His comments come amid growing signs of inflation in the U.S. economy, including the strong January jobs report. Dimon says people should take a deep breath on this one before they declare victory because the month numbers looked good. The hiring surge in January has complicated the Fed's fight to lower prices and tame inflation. Some of the which stems from the imbalanced labor market. Employers added a whopping 517,000 jobs. That's what I talked about earlier. Nearly triple what Wall Street expected. By the way, that is insane. Once again, to talk about the timing was perfect right before State of the Union speech for President Biden. 517,000 jobs. They were expecting a third of that, okay? While the unemployment rate has dropped to 3.4%, first time since May of 1969. Okay, May of 1969, the Fed last week voted to raise its benchmark interest rates to 4.5 to 4.75 and signaled that more increases could come this year. So these are going together. Jamie's saying relax, pump the brakes, don't celebrate too early. But then layoffs. Let's talk about the layoff stories, okay? So layoff stories. Then you hear, if you can bring up the Disney. So Disney comes out and says we're cutting 7,000 jobs and slashing $5.5 billion in cost as it unveils vast restructuring. This is a CNBC story. Disney said Wednesday it's planning to reorganize into 3 segments. While also cutting thousands of jobs and slashing costs, the media and entertainment giant said it would now be made up of 3 divisions. Disney Entertainment, which includes most of its streaming and media operations, ESPN division, that includes the TV network and ESPN streaming services, Parks, experiences, and product units. The only reason a person like Bob Iger would do that is because maybe he's planning on selling one of the 3. Who knows? That's the way you break it apart. Because to say, well, we're now 3 different. So, hey, if you want to buy one of them, well, we're kind of for sale. Again, I'm not saying anything. I'm just speculating. On Wednesday, during its quarterly earnings call with investors, Disney also announced it would be cutting $5.5 billion in costs, which will be made up $3 billion from content, including sports, and remaining $2.5 billion from non-content cuts. Disney also said it would be eliminating 7,000 jobs from its workforce. That would be about 3% of roughly 220,000 people it employs. That's a lot of people. Tom, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, there's a couple things going on here. First of all, if any of you out there has got some walking around money, you got a couple $2 billion, and you ever wanted to own ESPN, that thing is for sale. It's been bleeding subscribers for literally a decade, and it's not getting any better. You've seen big money celebrity commentators have been not renewed. They've culled the herd, as they say. And then on the other side of it, I dove into this. It turns out Hulu's doing okay. So Hulu is doing okay. They had some international markets on streaming not doing so well. But this is basically Iger coming back to turn this into a business. And they really overhired in a lot of areas. They had a lot of international things. And then he's looking at this ESPN thing saying, what do I do with this? Because right now, Hulu and Disney Plus are really covering for ESPN on the streaming side because Disney's got a great portfolio, a great offering. And the problem is ESPN is dragging it, and then parks are trying to make a comeback, and they've had all the controversy where we've heard about, oh, we're going to raise the price in parks so that way there'll be less people in line for everybody that finally goes to the parks. Remember that? They were doing that around December. Hey, any holiday travelers to go in? And then they've also got a, believe it or not, it's very real. What's going on in Florida with the tax change, that's real. When companies go, you'll read about companies opening factories in places, and they get a tax break from the state where they build the factory or something. Automakers have made a ton of money. Alabama gave money to Mercedes, and Tennessee gave money to Toyota. Please open your factories here, employ some workers, help our local economy. And ESPN has kind of poked the bear in Florida. So you're seeing Bob Iger do what the CEO of Disney needed to do, but he has the permission to do it because he's coming back with an expectation for change. This would have been much more difficult with an entrenched CEO suddenly saying, I'm going to do all this stuff.
So they bought what companies? Bob Iger's known. He was with
Pixar.
ABC, Disney for 38, 40 years, whatever the time. It's a great book. If you've never read the Ride of a Lifetime,
yeah.
sick book. We had all employers read it. It's a phenomenal book to read. The guy's a beast. What companies? Bob Iger's known. He was with
Pixar.
ABC, Disney for 38, 40 years, whatever the time. It's a great book. If you've never read the Ride of a Lifetime,
yeah.
sick book. We had all employers read it. It's a phenomenal book to read.